So welcome to the SACNAS webinar on best practices and resources for virtual student presentations. My name is Katerina Poradyuk, and I'm honored to serve SACNAS community as a student programs manager. Many of you will be joining us for 2020 SACNAS, the National Diversity in STEM Conference, which will be fully virtual this year and include online keynote speakers, mentoring and networking opportunities, graduate school and career expo hall, beautiful cultural celebrations, and of course, virtual student research presentations. If you have not yet, visit 2020sacnas.org to learn more and register. Few housekeeping items. Please know that you may submit your questions via the Q&A feature, and we will answer as many as we can. You can also introduce yourself in the chat. Remember to always be polite, mindful, and respectful to others with your comments. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the Student Presentation Subcommittee. These are members of our community who volunteer their time throughout the year to assist with the Student Research Presentations program. In anticipation of our first virtual conference, they have been working tirelessly to collect and prepare you with resources to make sure you're fully equipped for an online conference. Here they are: Ankrah, Mario Bañuelos, Megan Hamilton, Evan Reynolds, Jose Vargas Muniz, who also serves as the chair of the subcommittee, and Rosa Leon Zayas. And with that said, I want to thank our speakers for joining me here today. And I will start with our first question. So what are the presentation best practices?
Right. So before answering a little bit overview of this question, I want to point everybody to a preview webinar that SACNA is. We have Evan Reynolds and Mario in that webinar, as well as SACNA, Ariana Ailey, who is a specialist in science communication. And that webinar is filled with wisdom and really good nuggets of information that will allow you to make the best of that presentation opportunity of presenting online. So I don't want to go into too detail because I feel like that webinar is really comprehensive. I would not be adjusted to all the work that they put into it. Also, I wanted to mention that for presentation best practices, we're putting together some guidelines that will help you basically do the most of this experience. What are the best practices? And this is going to be a living document, which means it's going to be constantly be updated. So make sure what was the last day that was updated. And it will go with details of how to use the platform, some tips about you practicing your presentation in different formats and different modality, different format to actually convey your science, and how to engage in the platform that we're going to be using for the virtual conference.
Great, thank you, Jose. What type of platforms would you recommend to record 60-second video elevator pitch? And maybe you can also mention what is the 60-second video and why we need to have it.
Right, so on the event platform, you'll be able to upload a PDF of your presentation, but to go along with that, we're encouraging everyone to submit a short video to introduce your research, sort of give an elevator pitch of what your work is about and why it's important, so that people can sort of get a preview of your presentation before they watch the full thing and view your presentation files. So there's lots of different platforms you can use to record that 60-second elevator pitch video. Just depending on what kind of access you have to the equipment. One option is to just simply record yourself talking to a cell phone and record a video of yourself with a cell phone if you're comfortable with that. You could also use PowerPoint to do a simple slide narration. So that'll allow you to record audio with your slide, but it won't show video of you talking during that if you have that capability. Or if you want to do both slide narration and record yourself a video of yourself during that process, you can use something like Zoom. If you download the free version of Zoom, you can record yourself and your screen at the same time, and so that'll allow you to both see a video of you and also see your screen that you're sharing. So those are just a few options. There's probably other software out there as well. I think some of us may also be able to speak to other types of platforms you can use to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I recently started using Loom, L-O-O-M, and this allows you to not only video record yourself and have an image of yourself while you're speaking with your PowerPoint behind you, but it also allows you to edit it. So in case you make a mistake, you can edit that out.
Great resources, thank you. Next question. Is there anything that makes slides more interesting, engaging when presenting online?
All right, give me 1 second where I share my screen. So if you want to have your member audience to be engaged with your slides, you have to make conscious effort in making them appealing. So you have slides that look like this one where it has a title that is just like really generic and not really informative. It would not be really helpful for your audience. And something can pop up. And it would not be really helpful. And also having like a bunch of tests that you will really, it would not be really engaging for your audience. They would disconnect and they would basically be able to read it before that you will read it out loud. So it is not a really good idea to just like throw a bunch of tests. So one of the things that I would recommend is like, if it's possible, to add video into your slide. If you have a video of your data or a video that can summarize the process, that would be really helpful. But one of the caveats is like, because we're visual, you have to be mindful that the frame rate that the video play might not be good for the platform that we're going to be using for a visual scenario. So you can try to practice it and see if the video can play with your peers or your mentors. Usually slides that are really engaging, it kind of like looks like this. So it has a lot of images so people can engage and they can pay attention to the image while they listen to your narration. They have titles that are really informative. So even if the reader or the audience member get lost in the talk, they can read the title and know where's the point that you're trying to make. And I would recommend to like basically animate it so you can focus on each one of the images for each one of the points that you're trying to make. So trying to basically walk your audience members through the slide without overwhelming them visually with either text or images. And that way you can keep them engaged.
Thank you, Jose. Next question that came through, is there anything I should do differently to my virtual slideshow, such as formatting, number of slides, etc., than I would normally do? Rosa, would you like to answer that question?
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. I think there's definitely, like Jose was just saying, some tips that you can definitely use to make your virtual slideshow maybe not necessarily super different, but more appealing and understandable, right? Make sure that your figures are large, that you use figures of your research, and that you can explain them thoroughly whenever you're talking about them. I think it's also important, if you're going to be using slides, to be mindful of the time that you're going to be chatting with people. So I think I would advise against, a 30-slide presentation, right? Like, make sure that it's concise and that you get your point across when you're explaining your research.
Thank you. Would you recommend a poster or a PowerPoint format for virtual presentation?
All right, so for submitting your research to the conference, having a PDF format of your poster would be ideal. But then when you're actually meeting with your mentor judge, having a PowerPoint, for instance, allows you more flexibility because you can include animations and videos if you want. So you can consider these two options when submitting and presenting your research.
Thank you, Nana. Is a poster still needed for a virtual presentation, or a presentation slide will be enough?
I can take this too. So a slide will be enough, only because when you're meeting with your mentor judge, everything is virtual and you're doing this online. So just having that slide allows you, again, as I mentioned before, more flexibility to have the slide very visible, full screen, rather than having a poster where as you're presenting, you'd have to manipulate the camera and show different sections of your presentation. So a PowerPoint slide would be enough.
And I also see a question came through in Q&A. On average, how long should the virtual presentation be? Any of you want to answer that?
I think I mentioned earlier about not having a super extensive presentation. And I think I would not want to give you a specific number of minutes that your presentation should go for, because it definitely depends on, you know, your research and your level of comfort and how you present your data. But I would say try to make it brief, right? Don't plan on having a presentation that is half-hour long. That, I think that is definitely way too long, right? And remember that you're going to be talking to a mentor that was going to be trying to listen to you, and they're also likely have other things that they want to do. So just be mindful of having maybe 5 to 10 minute presentation that you can talk about your research and be explicit enough and allow time for your mentor to talk to you and ask questions.
Thank you.
Can I add to that? Yeah, so I think it's also important to maybe include some natural pauses in your presentation so that the mentor judge has the ability to ask questions, right? So you invite that during your presentation. And I second Rosa's comment about 5 to 10 minutes would be ideal.
Thank you, Mario. How do I fight Zoom fatigue? How can I get over not receiving body language and feedback from a live human audience? How can I get over not receiving?
I can take this. So I would say when you present to your mentor judge, try to have a break before then, so that it's not, if you're able to, not have Zoom meetings after Zoom meetings in the morning, and then in the afternoon you have to present, right? So if you're able to, try to create a break before your presentation. And I would try to present for people that are in your household, like present what you're going to present to your mentor judge and get the feedback from them, even if they're not in STEM, right? I think it's super important to be able to communicate those ideas with everyone.
Thank you. Rosa?
I would also like to put into everybody's mind that, you know, we are a community of differently able people, and that some people may have hearing disabilities that you may want to be thoughtful of. So try to, you know, as much as you can, as you present on Zoom, this can be a very difficult thing to overcome, right? We sometimes have a lag in the video, and your facial movements are not as sharp as it would be in real life. So just be mindful of that as you're presenting, and you know, try to enunciate really well and make it as accessible as possible for others.
I would also add, similar to that idea of not getting feedback from your audience when you're doing a virtual presentation, as Mario said, you can work in pauses to allow your mentor judge to ask questions, but you can also ask your mentor judge question, even if it's just something as, did you understand that? Or you know, a really simple yes or no question, just to make sure that they understood you well and give you a chance to get some feedback from your audience.
Briefly on the point of accessibility, if you do your presentation with Google Slides, there is a live caption option so that when you're presenting, captions are auto-generated.
Great, thank you. How would you best communicate our data to listeners so that everyone may understand it?
So a way to do this, like basically utilize diagrams and graphs that point out the main points. So I would completely discourage using like basically what I call data dumping. So have a really busy slide with a bunch of data and not relate to the important points that you're trying to make. So think about what of your data is the most salient and more supportive for your point that you're trying to make. And this can be like one or two sub-panel, a figure that can make that point and add it. If you have like a image that is really appealing and can catch someone at eyes, use that, and they have some quantification, something else that can add to like basically as an extra level of robustness, and that would be great to like make your data visually appealing, but also help you communicate it without your viewers feeling overwhelmed. Also, I would discourage the use of highly technical language, what we know as jargon. In particular for SACNAS, we are a science that had like a wide, broad scope. So not everybody that might be your mentor judges or your audience will be an expert in the field. And a lot of the words that we might use in our particular field might have one meaning, but someone that is in a field like Jensen has a different meaning. So you're just gonna try to explain your science in a way that a lay person, like a normal person, will understand it. And I know that that comes with a concern, like if I'm not using the jargon, I might not look smart or anything like that. But the point of communicating your science is like getting your point across and not to lose your audience by trying to use the really technical language that you're normally seeing, like papers or other research product. I will also encourage you to walk your audience through your data. So the way that you can do this is either with animation. So you start like showing different portions of your data at different time as you continue, or use your visual pointer on PowerPoint. So basically use your cursor switching to a pointer, and that way you can use that as you would normally use a laser pointer.
Another way you can also do this is include some kind of visual workflow of what your project is about. So include what the data collection workflow includes and how your method applies that data or uses that data and how it relates to your work. So like a visual representation of that workflow.
Thank you. Next question. How will a person at a conference express interest in one's poster presentation? And something similar to that question that came, will the public be able to attend or view presentations? I have some family interested in watching.
I can take that one. So we're encouraging individuals to basically contact the presenter directly via the virtual conference platform to trying to schedule a time for presentation. Right now, our platform doesn't have the capability of like giving like a wide public presentation. However, we encourage people to submit a 60-minute presentation somewhere in their research. So that way they can use it as a way of like figuring out if this is something that aligns with their interests and contact the presenter and get more exposure and learn. We encourage you to send that link, or if you're interested in any particular individual attending the conference about their research and you want to share it, we encourage you to interact with them and present it for the public. And Katarina, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we have any mechanism with that. But the good thing about having like a virtual platform is like you have a video yourself presenting your research and you want to share it, you can upload it on YouTube and basically share it with your individuals. I don't know if Infinity has this option of recording a section, and you can ask if it is okay to record it and then share it with the people that you want to share it with. But that's where we are. And also, the conference has an abstract book, so there is a way for people to like look through your abstract and decide like, oh, this is like a really neat research. I want to know more, and we're going to be encouraging them to contact you.
Yeah.
There was one thing I wanted to add, Katerina, if it's okay. There's also a way where you could maybe post it in some sort of social media platform and maybe tag SACNAS 2021 or 2020 in that. And therefore, I was thinking like in a lot of conferences I've been doing, I also post it in LinkedIn so I get more feedback as well.
Thank you, Megan, for the great suggestion. Yes, Rosa, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that this is one of the things that I am most excited about in this conference. I am super excited to be able to go into our platform and just check out your videos. So I can go and then ask you questions or schedule an appointment with you. This is going to be such a fantastic tool that we're going to be able to use. So please, if you have the opportunity, do record those short videos so then we can go and check out your research and who you are and be able to ask questions.
And the best part of the virtual conference, I will add to what Rosa said, you will be able to upload your video a few weeks before actually the conference starts, and all attendees will be able to access the video, your videos, throughout 2 full weeks instead of just 3 or 4 days at the conference. So definitely work on this 60-second elevator pitch video, make sure to upload it, and that's how all other attendees will be directly messaging you and scheduling meetings with you during the conference and even before the conference. So next question that we have, what will mentor judges be evaluating us on?
I can take this one. So I think the key thing here that mentor judges are looking for is your ability to communicate your research in the most basic terms. What we want to know is how well do you understand the research that was performed? How well do you understand the data that is coming out of it? And how well you understand how your research fits in the context of your field and in the broader field of biology or chemistry or whatever field that you belong to. So your ability to communicate effectively is one of the key things that we're looking out for.
All of you have served as mentor judges on numerous conferences. Would you like to add anything else? Okay, move on to the next question. What are some things you can do to maintain and get engagement during a virtual presentation? I know we've talked about it a little bit more. Are there anything else to add?
This is one thing to add. If you are going to add music, make sure that it's low. Sometimes your music can overpower your words. And so I would run that past your audience as well before you share it.
Thank you, Megan. How do I need to format my presentation? Is it different than a regular poster presentation? Do I need to format it differently? We talked about that too. Are there anything else that you think?
I can add a few things. So one thing to remember is for a normal poster presentation, because it's larger in size, you have the ability to stuff more material in there. But for a virtual presentation, you're limited by the screen size of whoever is viewing the presentation. In this case, your mentor judge or somebody you're sharing it with. And for most people, their screens are going to be small. So you want to not crowd your slide with too much text or too many figures and too many images. What I would say is find what is most important and pertinent to understanding your research and just display those with as minimal text as you can. And then, as other panelists have said, go for more imaging and explain everything that's on your slide in much more detail.
Thank you, Nana. What is the biggest difference between a top presentation and an average presentation?
I can take this one. So at the end of a maybe top presentation, I would be able to summarize the research that was presented in maybe 1 or 2 sentences to someone that wasn't at the conference or at the presentation. So I think especially presenting to like family members or friends and asking them after, can you summarize what I said? I think that's kind of a good way to gauge the difference between like if you got your message across or if you didn't.
I would also like to add that some of the most exciting presentations that I've had the chance to judge as a mentor judge at SACNAS are those that not only have a really thorough and clear explanation of the research, but also has a really clear why is this important, right? So, and that also I think echoes what Nana and Jose and everybody has said about and Megan about how it's important for you to organize your slides in such a way that it's very clear, but also remember to maybe at the end to have some like really specific bullet points of why is this helpful, why is it important, what is the main conclusion of this presentation.
Thank you, Rosa. If your research project was a team effort and there will be 2 presenters at the SACNAS conference, how different should the presentations be? Any advice on how to navigate this situation?
So this is drawing mostly from my personal experience, is that usually when I'm collaborating with someone and doing like a team effort project, for example, I'm more a cell biologist and one of my collaborators is more on the biochemistry. So whenever we present the same research, I focus on the cell biology aspect while my collaborator is focused on his particular area of expertise. So that's what I have done in the past, but it's because the nature of my collaborations, and you're like literally working on the same project and the same field and area, and you kind of like spinning like a different perspective. I think it's fine to present the same project because SACNA is not really evaluating on your project, it's evaluating the way that you can convey your science and communicate your science and get that experience of basically transferring your knowledge and the data that you have into a broader audience.
I would add that if you are going to have a kind of like a team presentation, right? There's like 2 of you that's working this project and you've decided to present as a team, which I think it's appropriate if you have done all this work together and would like to present it jointly. I would suggest that you practice, right? Go through a couple of practice rounds in which you, similar to what Jose said, kind of navigate and discuss beforehand which parts of the project you are going to be presenting and which parts of the project your partner is going to be presenting and how you're going to navigate the different parts of the presentation and questions and those kinds of things. So I think practice is the key there.
Thank you all. Another question, should we write a script to read off our presentation? What is your advice?
I can take this one. So this feeds into one of the questions that was asked before with regards to how to make your presentation more engaging. When you're reading off a script, it's difficult to get your listeners engaged. What you could do is have the script, practice your presentation with the script a couple of times, and then put the script aside and practice a couple more times without the script. What you want to do is have your presentation to be conversational and not something that's forced by reading. So I think reading a script during your actual presentation will not be advisable, but actually having it in a form where it's conversational and easy to follow will be the best approach to use.
And to add, when I've been working on speeches and things like that, sometimes just to have like the bullet points on my phone or something easily accessible, so in case you do get lost or trail off, that kind of recenters you and brings you back.
Jose, did you want to add?
So it's kind of like adding to the point of Megan. Like I usually, when I'm designing a PowerPoint or a presentation, I write my bullet points, which then those bullet points end up being the title of the slides because they end up being like the main point. So just have the main bullet point like Megan mentioned, and that way you can like basically recover. The other thing that I do to help me with like basically that script is that I usually print out my slides, but it's because I'm a little bit old school before presenter view was a thing. But just like get familiarized with the flow of your slides, and that way your presentation per se with presenter view will become your script.
Right, and also when you have a script, sometimes it increases your level of anxiety because you're trying to read off the script while engaging someone at the same time, and sometimes your reading isn't at its A game when you're presenting, so you get confused because you miss a line, and it makes everything go downhill. So you want to, as the other panelists have mentioned, do the bullet points rather than having a full-on script that you're following.
Thank you. Regarding presentation tips, what would you consider essential during a virtual presentation that is not seen during normal?
Maybe making sure your audio is on.
Good one.
Before you start, just asking if they can hear you.
Great. How would you interact with your audience during a virtual presentation? You don't even see them when you share your screen through the platform. Rosa, Megan, I see one of you want to answer that question.
For me, like if you're going to use Loom or Zoom, they can see your body gestures and your eye contact. Because if you're not going to have like a smaller image of yourself while you're presenting, it's really hard to gauge like your own body language and things like that. The other way to engage is to answer lots of questions and be really assertive about like interacting with them in a space outside of the virtual conversation. So this could be like in the platform itself.
Thank you. Rosa? No.
I mean, I definitely covered it. I just want to acknowledge that it is challenging, right, to speak to basically people that you cannot see or interact with easily, right? It's much simpler to do that in person. So it is a challenge, and it's something that as you practice, potentially it will become more easy and more kind of like simple to know that people are there and they are listening, and then maybe follow some of the advice that my other colleagues have said about, putting pauses within your presentation and maybe asking if people have clarifying questions of what you have just said before you move on.
Thank you. Do you have any recommendations for what to do if my internet goes out in the middle of my presentation? I'm most concerned about this.
So that's a really good question. I think at the start of your presentation, you could maybe discuss with your mentor judge what to do in case this happens. So maybe you can reschedule to have another slot. So that might be the best option is to say beforehand, hey, if this goes up, what can we do? And then you guys can come to an arrangement.
Thank you, Nana. Another question that came up. How can students or attendees keep focus and engage with e-conferences? And I know some of them, or not all, have attended other virtual conferences. Maybe you can share your experience and give some tips.
Yeah, I have the attention span of a goldfish, so attending virtual conference is really hard for me, especially because I'm not getting that human contact feedback, it's just staring into the screen. So the way that I do it is that I basically look at the schedule, look where our areas that are important, and basically schedule that are important to me, and basically schedule a break to basically recharge my eyes. I also get my eyes get visibly irritated if I'm looking constantly into the screen. So I basically use those blue glasses. I noticed that it helped me a lot to like basically maintain myself engaged. And it is difficult, especially because you're not getting that human interaction. You're just like basically engaging into a visual platform, but like trying to identify ways like building breaks, um, to basically maintain yourself charged and engaging out the times that you think that are more beneficial for you. So get familiarized with the schedule or event. There is also events that are recorded and then later, and this is drawing from previous conference. I don't know how SACNAS conference in general is going to look like, that they announce that, oh, this event is going to be recorded. So I'm just like, okay, that's going to be my break. And then later on YouTube, I'm going to watch that conference when I'm a little bit more recharged. And then usually they give you ways to contact the speaker. So you have a question you want to engage with, then you can proceed with doing that.
Maybe also you could take notes while you're watching a presentation to try to keep yourself engaged in it. Just jot down questions or things that you are interested in about the presentation as it goes along.
And my advice would also be really intentional about reaching out to other people in the conference and getting to know them in a virtual space.
Thank you all. Going back to the presentation questions, and for all attendees who are listening to us now, if you have any questions, keep submitting them via Q&A or even chat. We're monitoring both of those features. Will we be able to view other people's presentations if we are also presenting?
So you're presenting an oral presentation and they're on the same session as you, you're gonna be seeing everybody in that session. But if your friend is in a different session, then you will not be able, because those are closed rooms. So it's only the mentor judges and the student presenter in that particular room that are gonna be presenting. But again, we highly encourage you to basically set up your own rooms and interact with attendees that might be interested in your research, and encourage them to like set up a time to watch you present. And you will have the 60-minute elevator pitch of your research that you can also widely share in social media as well as through the platform.
Thank you. And yeah, take a full advantage of the virtual conference, because when in previous years student presenters were presenting, they were all scheduled to present at the same time in the expo hall. And so now you will be able to schedule your own presentation at your convenient time. And I encourage you to request presentations from your fellow presenters as well. So you can listen to their research, their presentation skills, and also provide your feedback to them and follow up with them. Are we allowed to do a group presentations at SACNAS conference? So the answer will be not really. And at SACNAS conference, we encourage students to give individual presentations, even though we understand majority of you are working in the groups with your peers on the same research, but we want you to experience that one-on-one mentorship at the SACNAS conference. So therefore, we encourage you to present your research individually. So I'm looking at other questions that are coming up. How can I create an effective and broad elevator pitch of a complicated and specific subject? Who would like to take that question?
I think to put in another plug for the previous webinar that we did on giving effective virtual presentations, Dr. Ariana Eiley had a very good document that she shared there where she shared basically 3 points of an effective science presentation that were make it memorable, make it clear, and the third one, let's see if I remember it, make it engaging, I believe. And so I think the key, if your topic is really technical, is to connect it to people's everyday lives, or sort of focus on the bigger picture so that you can make it relatable to them. So you start with that, and then you can try to work in the more specific details after you give sort of the bigger picture introduction to your research. But I think the 60-second video you should try to make connect to a larger audience, and maybe save the more technical aspects for your actual research presentation.
Thank you. And so the question came that the video that attendees uploads that the others can then find, is that for all conference attendees or just the presenters? So it will be for all conference attendees. And so one of the last questions, do poster dimensions change for virtual conference? Because we usually give the specific dimensions because we have the poster board at the expo hall. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think poster dimension, because it's visual, doesn't really affect it that much, because everybody, if they have like a PDF, they can zoom in into like a particular figure that they want to look if they're just like reading the poster. The things that you have to be conscious of is like, if somebody needs to blow up that figure into a way that they can see it, make sure that your figure doesn't end up being pixelated. So I would recommend just like basically design your normal poster as a file, and then somebody needed to shrink it, is better than trying to blow it up and then it's pixelated.
Thank you. Do you feel like we are missing the greatness of community learning by having a virtual conference?
I can speak to that a little bit, because one of my favorite parts of the conference is being able to sit down at lunch and just with random people and then just share our stories. So I feel like that's going to be missing. But I hope that through the conference platform that is chosen for this virtual conference, we'll be able to have some semblance of that. But yeah, it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be the same, but hopefully we'll try our best to keep it inclusive and to build that community virtually.
I was going to add a positive spin as well, is sometimes the cost of travel has been prohibitive for some participants in the past. And so we might actually be engaging a wider audience, and you might be meeting new and different people in this way.
And as I mentioned earlier, I am very excited about the possibility of really being able to see a little bit more of those snippets of people's research that would take a very long time for me to walk around the poster hole to be able to access. So I think this will be a really exciting way for me to see a lot more students' research and their presentation. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So I think that certainly will make it very special.
And probably the activation energy is a little bit higher for this, but there's still a way of creating community in a visual platform. And the really good thing about being visual is, like, for example, when I attended the Mycological Society meeting, all the people that were attending the meeting and were in marine fungi, we basically started like a Twitter thread to like see who is interested in meet up. And then during the lunch break, we just meet up, have lunch, get to know each other, share a little bit of our research. So it's a little bit more involved. It's not as organically as it will happen when you're sitting to have lunch at SACNAS. But still, there are mechanisms that you can connect with individuals that you haven't connected before and share your passion for science.
Thank you all. Thank you, Student Presentation Subcommittee, for taking the time to share resources and best practices for virtual presentation to all of our attendees. Thank you for your questions and engagement. I'm sure we're all very excited to see you this October. And I know for sure this group, the Student Presentation Subcommittee, will work hard to prepare and gather even more resources before we go into the conference. So definitely expect emails from us with more information as we're also learning on our end. And so I would like to also invite you to join us for another free virtual event specifically for community college students that is happening this September, actually 1 month from today, to help equip and empower you for degrees and future careers in STEM. Lastly, you can explore upcoming and previous webinars on our website anytime at sacnas.org/webinars. And this concludes our webinar, and we will see you next time. Again, thank you so much to all of you. Bye.